Good evening. This is the Board of Education meeting for which adequate notice under the Open Public Meetings Act was provided by written notice on January 3, 2019 to the Courier News, the Echo Sentinel, the Star Ledger, Tappan to Warren, and the clerks of the Borough of Watchung and the townships of Greenbrook, Long Hill, and Warren. Can we have a roll call, please, Mr. Stiles?
Ms. Brown? Mr. Fahey?
Here.
Mr. Hayek?
Here.
Mr. Hunsinger? Here. Mr. Morrison?
Here.
Mrs. Ober?
Here.
Dr. Shabilsky?
Here.
And Mr. Fallon.
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'll now entertain a motion in accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, be it hereby resolved that the board move into executive session to discuss confidential personnel, legal, and HIB matters, the CSA contract and merit goals, and WHREA negotiations, after which action will be taken. It is expected that the matters discussed in executive session will be made public as soon as the need for confidentiality no longer exists. Someone make that motion?
So moved.
Second? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Good evening. We're back in public session. Just before student recognition, I will, on board correspondence, the board did get a letter from one of our students who had collected 400 signatures in last week. They wanted to tell the board directly how passionate and devoted our teachers here at Watchung Hills are, and how they really want them coming in before 7:20 and staying later in the afternoon. You know, I've been telling people for years how dedicated our teachers are and how outstanding and that they are the fabric of what makes this a good school. It's also important that you know we're continuing to work with the teachers. We did reach a memorandum of understanding with the Teachers Negotiating Committee last June for the amount of the raise that is going to be given. What has been taking time over the summer is working out the exact distribution of where the various guides will end up in terms of pay at each level. That's what we're doing now, and we expect we'll be having a meeting with the teachers to try and get that resolved sometime in the next week or so. But I did want you to know that we got this letter, and it's appreciated hearing from the students, and it's a sentiment that we certainly understand. Now we're going to move on to student recognition, and I want to first thank all the parents and the students who have come out tonight. You're among many students here who have accomplished really great things that this board is awed at, you know, year after year as we hear these reports. So we're looking forward to this probably as much as you are. Dan?
Thank you. It gives me great pride and joy to recognize the athletes and teams that earned recognition for the 2019 spring season. I'm going to call people up individually by sport, and when you come up per sport, if you would stay here until all members of that team have been recognized. I have Ms. Scheiderman here who will be handing out the certificates, and at that point in time, the ideal scenario is that we would wait and applaud when they're all up here. That would certainly make it much easier. So we start with golf, boys golf. First team all conference, Liam Larkin. Or we can applaud individually. Either way works. And first team all conference, Austin Liao. Let's hear it for our boys golf team members. Thanks, guys. You can sit down. Our next point is boys lacrosse. We have second team all conference, Joey Denave. Second team all-conference, Anthony Leone. Second team all-conference, Matthew Spalding. Let's hear it for our boys lacrosse team members. Good job, guys. Next, we move to girls lacrosse. All-conference honorable mention, Rebecca Boo Brady. She's the only one cool enough to have 3 names tonight, I apologize. All-conference honorable mention, Francesca Diamore. Second team all-conference, Catherine Roche. And second team all-conference, Kylie Tuma. Let's hear it for our girls lacrosse team. Next, we move on to softball. We have first team all-conference, second team all-area, Sophia Cicchetti. And second team all-conference, third team all-area, Danielle Lacana. Let's hear it for our softball team members. Next, we go to boys volleyball. Second team all-conference, Reese Kirchhoffer. And first team all-conference, Alexander Radzinski. Let's hear it for our boys volleyball team members. Next, we move on to boys track. We have first team all-conference, first team all-group 4, Christopher Salkowski. And let's hear it for our boys track team members. And last but not least, we move on to girls track. So initially, the girls track team that I'm going to call up, and I'll call up a bunch of members here that were all members of the North 2 Group 4 State Sectional Championship team. Quite an accomplishment this year. So I'll call up about 5 or 6, and then we have additional girls that garnered individual accolades as well. So our first girls are Emma Bayens. Gabriella Clark. Alyssa Dang. Carly Gabely. Samantha Glass. Lily Ianella. Gabrielle Rodriguez. Abigail Shanahan. Caroline Vogel. And our next few girls, again, in addition to being the North 2 Group 4 State Sectional Champs, they've also garnered individual accolades. Our first girls, first team all-conference, third team all-group 4, Laura Bayens. Next, we have first team all-conference, third team all-group 4, Gretel Gelmert. Next, we have first team all-conference, second team all-group 4, second team all-state, Mahogany Jenkins. And next we have first team all-conference, Teresa Rotolo. Let's hear it for our girls track and field team members. That's all from me. Again, congratulations to all of you. Thanks for coming out. I appreciate it.
Okay, just before everybody leaves, I also want to thank everybody who voted in favor of our referendum last week. We're very pleased that that passed, but feel free to leave as you see fit.
Thank you. Take a cookie. You earned it.
Take a whole bunch of cookies, please.
Except for Barry's.
Barry, that's it, yeah.
You didn't earn a cookie.
You can't leave and you can't have a cookie.
We were telling them to leave and take a cookie.
I only had one. All I need.
And just before we get into the committee reports, I'd like to take a moment to thank everybody who worked so hard on getting that referendum passed. Our administrators who went to the various township committee meetings, so long, Dan, and staff members and board members who reached out to get people to vote, to our representatives from both the newspaper and TAP, who got the word out to many people with a lot of the details on the referendum and helped us get the information out. And finally, and a very great vote of thanks to Sue Collins from Long Hill, who put a tremendous amount of effort into contacting people with her extensive email list from Long Hill early and often. We had a mail-in vote from Long Hill that was off the charts in terms of any prior election. And I kept hearing from people in Long Hill that it was Sue who got after them to do it. And so we're very thankful for her efforts as well as everybody here and what they did. Now we're going to move on to the Education Committee report. Bob?
The Education Committee met last week on September 25th, and you all have the report in your folders, but just a couple of highlights. We spent the majority of the meeting talking about the New Jersey Student Learning Assessment results, as well as the comparison of the AP results and the SAT results for the last school year. And we had presentations from Mr. Twizzler, Mr. D'Alessio, and Mr. Acquavia going through the breakdown of student performance in each of those areas. I'm not going to go into any detail about that tonight because we're preparing for an October 15th Board of Education meeting presentation from those groups where they will have a lot more to share with you and any additional comments that I think any of us on the Ed Committee have will probably be more appropriate to be shared at that time. We also discussed the issue with volunteer clubs, ensuring that the clubs would be able to continue on, even though we are lacking teacher volunteers to support those clubs. Dr. Jewett shared with us that there were a few clubs that were lacking advisors, and what's been put into place is that Mr. Patelli will oversee all of the clubs meeting in here in the media center, while there will also, where he will serve as the advisors, but the students themselves will be able to meet in here to make sure that those clubs continue until new advisors are found for those clubs. We also then talked about the personal finance course and the availability of it to take that online. It was offered this summer actually as summer enrichment and is also now offered during the school year for one semester. The feedback that we've heard is that we're going to actually run the course online and make it available online for both the fall and the spring semester. For those that may recall, when the law requiring personal finance first went into place, it was required for all of our incoming freshmen to be able to take that, which then limited their ability to experience other things. It was then we were able to move it to later, but we have found that now many students actually find it an excellent course to dabble in online learning, so they can take the finance course and get credit for it online, while also being able to take advantage of the plethora of extracurricular activities that we have here at the school. The last item that we talked about was a proposal for our Warriors baseball team to take a trip out of state for spring training. Last year, Dr. Jewett was approached by varsity baseball to attend spring training down in Florida. The coaches put together a plan with all arrangements made by a training facility down there. The trip would be from Thursday evening until Sunday evening, which is the way all of our out-of-state trips run, and all the costs would be covered by the students. The only cost that the district would have to cover is 1 day of substitutes for 3 of our faculty members who are our coaches. Committee was asked about fundraising, asked about fundraising by the Booster Club, and practice for the remaining students. Would there be coaches behind for the JV and freshman team, as well as nurse requirements? Dr. Jewett followed up with the committee with answers to those questions. And so the trip is actually on the agenda for preview tonight for approval on the October 15th agenda. And the Education Committee was comfortable with recommending approval of that trip. And that was it. Is there anything I missed that anyone else Ed Committee wants covered?
Don't think so, Bob.
Any questions?
Thank you, Bob. Personnel, do we have anything to discuss?
Yep, we had a personnel committee also on September 25th. The C items were previewed. There was an update on vacancies, which are reflected in the C items, other than the posting for a principal, which is still up and active. The personnel committee followed up on the conversation as to whether or not they recommend an overall restructuring of the administrative structure, and the committee did not support that change at this time. Job descriptions were reviewed and are on for action October 15th, and they are aligned with positions that are being recently filled.
Thank you.
And your statement was did not recommend,
Did
correct?
not recommend the change at this time.
Greg, operations?
Sure, so we had a meeting on September 10th, and you have those minutes in your packet. We also had a meeting just before this meeting, and I only bring that up because one of our preview items, D9, reflects part of that discussion. From the September 10th meeting, we got updates on bids and RFPs. A piano bid was accepted after having some discussion with an expert to help us compare the two bids. We only had one bid on the tennis courts, but that was within budget, and that was accepted. And I think we talked at the last meeting about rebidding the strategic plan consultant. So that's in the future, as is the security wall rebid. Audit is in progress. Last week we had a tour of the wonderful Gym 7-8 locker room with the few students that we encountered, thank you. We're very, very grateful and enjoyed the substantial upgrade in facilities that had been needing it for a very, very long time, and it was great that we were finally able to accomplish that for them. ESIP, which is what we talked about primarily today, is an energy savings improvement program. There are some costs that we would initially need to bear that are on the preview item that I mentioned that ultimately would be paid back in the anticipated savings that would occur. Essentially, we had a superficial free state review of our energy systems, which anticipated a potential savings of, if I recall correctly, around $2 million-ish. And usually, because that's a fairly superficial dive, a deeper dive results in typically a greater savings. And we're told by our architects that that is at the across the threshold at which companies are interested in participating, basically funding the project in a way that there's not out-of-pocket costs ultimately to us, and we accumulate savings along the way. We were told that the alternative way to accomplish this, which you can do on your own, is paying for it, and to get into that $3 million or so project that our architects estimate, we would again need to go out to referendum to get that kind of money, which is unrealistic. There is some cost to doing it this way that we wouldn't otherwise incur, because we're essentially paying somebody to do some of this stuff for us, but it avoids the referendum and also takes away some of the risk in exchange for losing some of the potential savings. Ultimately, I think the committee was in favor of going forward with this, and we concluded that discussion with an interest in discussing with the sending districts whether they may be interested in a cooperative agreement and joining some or all of what we would like to do, because it's our understanding from the architects that the larger the scope of project, the less of a cut the ESIP contractor takes, and the better the savings are for us. And again, it's an opportunity I think that we might be able to take advantage of to cooperate in shared savings with the sending districts.
Was this originally part of, remember when we had the strategic plan about upgrades of our facilities, I guess it was called?
The long-range facilities plan?
Yeah, was that part of this? Was this part of that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, the items in there, yes. And
Okay.
and the architect actually did identify it as an ESIP eligible project.
Okay. And ESIP stands for?
Energy Savings Improvement Program.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and what.
So basically, basically they're gonna go out and do like an RFP of some sort,
Yes.
and we're gonna pay for that, but by having them do this for us, by investing in this little bit, we will get people to bid to do the project and pay for it rather than us paying for it?
Well-
That's
they
what I
run
think
it-
I heard?
It's paid out of our savings that we, on the energy.
Correct, so they're essentially capturing some of our savings as their payment for doing this for us.
And
Right.
it's essentially, they're putting together an RFP for us to hire an energy service company,
Okay,
which will then be administering the project, doing a deeper dive into what things we might save money on. What we're paying the architects for is so that the energy service company that we would eventually hire wouldn't just be going after the low-hanging fruit,
Right.
but would do things that make sense for us as a school district, because you can fold in some things that are longer term with money that you can save from the lights.
so I'm gonna say, so something like, and I'm just gonna use stupid numbers, we will save the district $5 million, and we're gonna take $2 million of that, and you get the $3 million savings, and we get the $2 million?
Well,
Is that what you're saying?
The idea really is that we hope to be able to, even if we don't put solars, the ballparks that we were talking about were about a $2 or $3 million project
Okay,
that would be paid for out of the energy savings over the 15 years.
Right.
okay, all right.
And in the interim, you're getting the upgraded lighting.
Okay.
If we've got solar panels, which is sort of the extreme ends of the range of things that could be done, you have the option of continuing those solar panels later or having them removed, all of that being at the risk of the person putting them on there, as opposed to us taking the risk and having to deal with maintenance and so
Yeah,
forth.
I remember about, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, they came to Long Hill, and we listened to it, and we just couldn't figure out how this was gonna work, where it was gonna save us money, so I'm hoping that this is not the
Well,
same thing, like it's different now.
And Dr. Shabilsky recalled the problems with the multi-county projects that they were trying to do back
Yeah.
then. And when I was on this board then, and the problem was we didn't have roofs that could support it.
Right,
We've
right,
redone
that's
it.
always an issue too, you have to have the space.
It's the
open-
space, it's the age, the
Okay.
capacity to handle the weight.
Right, but we're all in agreement that this little investment is worth it to see if we can move forward.
That's what the
That is our
committee's
recommendation.
Okay,
Yeah, the state report that we received, it did identify a number of I don't call them deficiencies, but we're just, you know, out of
Areas
date.
for improvement.
Yeah, I mean, there are, all of our lights are, almost all of them are your fluorescent lights. The LEDs will certainly make a significant improvement in terms of energy savings, for sure. Not even captured in the report is the maintenance cost that you pay for with replacing lights every year. LEDs will last
These LEDs
much
last a
longer.
lot longer?
They will.
How much longer do the LEDs last than the fluorescent?
Like they said,
For-
15 years as
He's-
opposed to 1
Yeah,
year.
he said 10.
10.
Yeah, 15 would
Very
be
often.
great.
They said 7 to 15.
The fluorescents will go a year
Compared with
or
one.
two.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah. They don't go
Well, I
years.
know, yeah, I know they're definitely much.
Because our guys are walking around all the time fixing lights.
Brighter and they don't put off.
Fixing the 14,000 fluorescent
Yeah, it's 14,000. So that's one example.
With
lot
ballast
of
for each
fluorescent.
one of them.
There's controls on some of the units called VFDs that was identified in the report. Variable frequency drives, which controls the heating and cooling. And solar was one of the things that they, you know, it is in the report we can look at, and they identified the north roofs as the best place for that, which I agree with, because it's got a great exposure. There's a lot of space, and there's not a lot of stuff on them, so, but something to look at.
And the timeline, like when we expect, like, we would have bids?
So our action, I guess, would be at the next meeting, which would get them putting together stuff by the end of this year, with bids going out very, very beginning of next year, January, February, and ultimately
for the
project
energy company.
maybe
For the
summer.
energy company, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we were looking at not really doing any construction next summer, but then with the following school year, starting on nights and into the following summer.
Okay.
They also gave us reassurance that in the media center planning, that they would take into account what would potentially be coming down the line and make sure that
Yes.
it's not duplicative.
Okay.
Bob, you had a question?
Just so I understand, the $3 million rough estimate, that's over a 15-year period?
That's over a 15-year period, and that was, they were thinking 2 to 3 million project costs, including what gets paid to both the architects and the energy company and the construction, without the solar. They thought that if we put solar on the north, that might support another close to $1 million in projects for the savings from the solar.
Wow.
So we said, you know, tentatively, we want to look into that as well.
And for those going to school boards, that is a popular topic down in New Jersey school boards.
All right.
We'd love to talk about that one.
And let me just add, Dr. Shabilsky mentioned the piano and hiring an expert. I just want to thank Bob Morrison, who assisted our administration in finding an expert who could provide an independent evaluation of the different bids that came in. So it was appreciated, Bob. Thank you.
Is the piano here?
This week?
This week?
Supposed to be, yeah. Hey, one other thing
Yes.
was on that.
Yes.
There was a brief discussion about the referendum.
Yes.
The one piece was the financing piece.
Oh, that's right.
We're starting that now. There's a resolution just for discussion tonight, but that's essentially authorizing the temporary note. And that process should end around December. So then we would be authorized to go ahead with the temporary note. Our architect is working with us right now. We had a kickoff meeting. So they're putting together a schedule where they want to essentially get specifications done, I think it was by December, have bids in January and award in February. That was their plan. And then the construction would take place end of June through, and again, this is the tricky
Mid-September.
part, it's going to be mid-September. So the first month of school will be a little bit challenging,
And
but we'll work on it.
we also discussed in the committee the idea of borrowing it as a note rather than as a bond. And So we're talking about a note because it looks like we can get a slightly better interest rate on a note rather than on a bond. And since we're going to pay it off within the first year anyway.
The downside is that the note would then, I would have to put the interest into the operating account, but it's about $40,000. So, you know, we can handle that in our operating budget. And it's just, you know, it'll be less usage of capital reserve.
So we wouldn't need bond counsel technically?
No,
then?
it's still the same
Oh.
council, it's
okay.
a shorter term.
Okay.
And
the
that's
final-
D8.
That is D8, thank you.
And the final thing that we talked about is all this furniture that we've got in here. The committee supported the idea of the administration that before we just put it on a donation site, that we reach out to the 4 towns and to the school, 4 K-8 school districts to see if they have need for any of the furniture here that will not be needed after the is transformed to a media center. I think that's it, and that brings us to candidate interviews. Yeah, board members, in your folders tonight, I should hope, we have both some suggested questions as well as evaluation sheets for you to keep track, because we have 4 candidates.
These are
And-
courtesy of the Long Hill Township Board of Ed, because they serve them.
As well as the statements that we received from each of the 4 members, 4 applicants for the position. Have you got an order in which we're proceeding, Tim?
I do not. You can go right by my little memo, though. What's the name?
Yes. Okay, so first we're going to ask, and forgive me if I butcher this, Amkar Govindarajan.
Yeah.
He's not here, so he's not going to go first. Julie, you're next. Julie Mazer,
Yes, up here?
please.
All right. How are you guys?
Great, how are you?
Well, thank you. My name is Dr. Julie Mazer, and I am a resident of Long Hill Township for
Julie,
42
could-
years.
Julie,
I-
can you pull the microphone
down?
just a little closer so it gets recorded? as
Sure.
well?
I'll start over. My name is.
I'm going to interrupt you one more time. I'm going to turn this back to face the board.
Okay.
So that way you
Yeah.
don't have to turn your
Yeah,
back.
I'm not handing words
Yes,
out.
there you go.
Although there is one here, so I can grab it. All right. Again, my name is Dr. Julie Mazer. I am a resident of the Gillette section of Long Hill Township, have been for 42 years. I have to say, it's been, if nothing else, a trip down memory lane coming here tonight. And I'm incredibly happy that the referendum passed, because I'm not sure things look that much different in here than when I was here 20-plus years ago. So that leads me to that I'm a graduate of Watchung Hills. And I read about this opportunity in the Echo, and it really allows me to kind of marry my passion for education, my experience in education, and my desire to volunteer and give back to my community. Currently, I work at Montclair State University. I'm the Associate Director of the Academic Success Center there, where I work with students who come to us who are either incredibly prepared for their college experience or incredibly unprepared for their college experience. So I know and understand the importance of the education that students get in their high school experience. I also teach at Montclair State and have taught in the college realm for over 20 years. I work with students in kind of all areas and all aspects of their college career. In my role at Montclair State, I coordinate tutoring services, I coordinate testing services, things like supplemental instruction, working with various departments and colleges at the university to ensure that our curriculum is aligned, and kind of finding ways to blend and partnerships and create partnerships within the institution. In the testing aspect of things, we do testing for all incoming students to the university to discern if they are college ready. And as institutions of higher education kind of start to step away from remediation, again, I think that's another focal point with high schools that we need to ensure that our students are prepared to take that next step in their post-secondary careers. I also have been fortunate enough to work with pre-college programs, so working with students who are high school students who are very interested in earning some college credits prior to their attending a university. Have created a Jumpstart program at Montclair State where we have students come in and take 6 credits prior to their starting at Montclair State to kind of get their feet wet, help with that transition, and so I kind of understand how important those aspects and those transitional aspects, and how important it is for us at the high school level to ensure that the students are prepared not only academically, but for all of the emotional and demands and transitional issues that students experience transitioning from high school to college. And also something that a lot of folks don't talk about, but that we are talking about very much in the higher education realm, is the experience in ensuring that students are career ready too. Not only are they, and that starts here, and that starts in the high school environment, kind of giving them those experiences that can ensure that they're career ready and know what opportunities there are inclusive of a college career. Kind of have done a little bit of research and kind of looking at the strategic plan and those sorts of things, and I think that especially in bullet point 2, in the overarching kind of discussion of the strategic plan and talking about preparedness for post-secondary education, I think my experiences would really allow me to kind of shine a lens on that from the seat at the board to talk about what it is in higher education, what we're looking for in students, and how we can ensure that the students at Watchung Hills Regional High School are kind of best prepared to take that next step in their career, whether that's going out into the working world or going to a college or university, and how we can ensure that they are best prepared to do that. That's kind of a very brief overview of me and what I do. I would love to answer any questions or delve deeper into areas of my experience that you guys might have more questions about.
Rita?
I'll start.
Yeah.
What has been your previous community or non-profit experience?
So I have volunteered with the Ford Foundation and working in social justice causes and those sorts of things.
I'm sorry, which?
The Ford Foundation in New York City. As far as direct involvement in my community, I haven't had the chance to give back. I just graduated in May with my doctorate, and so that really consumed a lot of my time, and now I'm kind of twiddling my thumbs wondering what I should do with myself. So when this opportunity presented itself, I felt that this would again be a great way for me to start my foot in the door with the community involvement, give back to Long Hill Township, which has given so much to me that I have made it a home for my entire life. And then, kind of get involved that way and use my experiences in education to do so. I do have some experience. My master's degree is in teaching. I did work at Central School briefly in Long Hill Township and did the gamut of subbing at the K-8 schools, also prior to me launching into higher education.
Greg?
I enjoyed hearing about your educational and administrative experience.
Yeah.
My question is what you foresee or what you believe is the role of a school board member?
I think to understand what the needs of the school are, understand the needs of the district that you're representing, and ensuring that those kinds of balances are struck. And then I think the goal of any educational board is to our students and to make sure that they're getting the best education that they can, that we are availing ourselves of the resources that are out there. I think one of the reports that you gave, you talked about the finance piece and having students participate in that finance piece, and I can speak to in the higher education realm, we see students come and they are not prepared. They do not understand the financial commitments that they're making going to college, when they're signing off on a loan, when they're getting those loans. And so I think, the board member needs to balance the needs of the community, but also make sure that the students are getting the education that they need to not only be successful here at Watchung Hills and provide the tools or be able to understand the tools and the options of the tools that we can give our students and our community and our school system.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bob, please.
So obviously, working in higher education, one of the requirements there is working in teams. Can you describe kind of the team working environment that you've been a part of there?
Yeah, I've been on so many different committees and teams and groups. One of the groups that I'm currently working with is we're working on streamlining our communication within the institution. So that we're calling it care units, which we're kind of borrowing from the medical field, but that everybody knows what interactions we've had with students, so that we're not necessarily passing a student from Beth to Tim to Peter without them knowing kind of what the conversations have had. And so that's been a campus-wide initiative where we need to get faculty involved, staff involved, and so all of the people who have the touch points with the students need to be stakeholders and need to be supportive for that process to work. And so we started that process, goodness gracious, if it's October somehow now, we started that about a year ago, and we're just implementing it and rolling it out with this academic year. And so that's one of the most recent teams that I've been lucky enough to be part of. Also, we work a lot, the partnerships with the college, when you're at an institution with over 20,000 students, there's lots of competing folks who are looking for the dollars for the support, and the academic support center that I run is for the entire university. So undergraduate, graduate students, and everybody feels that their students need the most support. So it's kind of building those relationships with the various stakeholders on campus so that we can use the resources wisely and get them the support that they need.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Barry?
What would you like to see, what would you like to strengthen in this district?
Well, I did a brief dive into kind of the scores, and it seems like there's a lot going on. I do think that, and the students are doing well, and they're prepared very well, and it looked like something along the lines of 96% of the students are heading off to college, and the SAT scores were great, and the reading scores were great. And so I think making sure that you don't take your foot off the gas and get comfortable with how well we do, to make sure that we're kind of still giving the students the best education that they can get and prepared for whatever next step it is that they take. I also think that it's important to start to look into some of the things, because as students get ready for colleges are kind of backing away a little bit and expecting our students to come into the doors prepared. And so making sure that we're doing things like that financial thing where students come in and they have those experiences. And so kind of keeping fingers on the pulse points of what the next levels of education are and what the next needs are for the students so that they can go in and be successful. Even community colleges are getting rid of remediation programs. And so it's so important to ensure that the students are prepared to kind of get out there and succeed.
I'm just going to ask the last question, whether you're aware of the time, training requirements.
I am. I actually had a couple
commitments.
Yeah.
And the ethics law and disclosure law.
Sure. So I actually, my supervisor at Montclair State was on the board of ed in Wayne. And so I did pump him through a bunch of questions prior to kind of coming to speak with you folks. And he said, that the time and the training and all that stuff that you're going to need to do before you can kind of really even dive in. And so, yes, I am. I wouldn't say that I'm 100% aware, and I'm sure that you guys can throw something at me. I'll go, whoa, that's exciting. Wasn't planning for that. But I'm certainly willing to take it on head on and have no problem with the time commitment.
Thank you, Julie.
Yeah, my pleasure. Anything else?
Thank you.
All right, thank you guys for your time.
Next on our list is Jordana. Jordana, would you pronounce your last name for me?
Raban.
Raban. Thank you.
Raban. Good evening. Congratulations on the referendum, and it's exciting to see that Long Hill came through for us. Yay, little Long Hill. So I guess I'm here to share a little bit about myself. So let me start with, personally, I'm a mom of 2 Watchung Hill students. Actually, one just graduated in 2019, and he's currently a freshman at Purdue University, and I couldn't be happier with his accomplishments here and more grateful to what this school has done for him. So, and I have a sophomore who we need to prepare for college. So definitely very much vested in this institution. I'm also what I call myself as a global citizen. So I speak multiple languages. I grew up overseas. And so, you know, I really applaud your strategic plan language and goal of helping our kids succeed in a global community. I feel that my global perspective really helped me succeed in my life, and today kids have no choice but to really have that global perspective and be immersed with it. So I really love seeing that in the strategic plan. Professionally, I'm on my 3rd career. My background started in finance. I have an MBA from NYU Stern School in finance and marketing. I spent over 20 years in the marketing field doing innovation and strategy, so have a lot of experience taking projects from just the basic idea all the way through implementation, and I love seeing my babies on the store and the shelves. I'm currently on my 3rd career. I'm actually launching my own business in health and wellness. I'm a personal trainer and a health coach now. And so again, I really love you know, your goal of enhancing our children's social and emotional wellness, because I work with a lot of adults that lack that wellness. And I think, again, this is super important to nurture it in this really important developmental stage. In terms of my qualifications as a board member, well, I'm currently a board member at Long Hill. I'm the vice president, as well as I'm a chair of several committees, of the Community Relations Committee, of the Technology Committee. I'm proud of a lot of our accomplishments. I'm well aware of the time commitment and the code of ethics that's required to serve on the board. I take community service very, very important. Education is very important to me. I have a lot of passion for education, and so I see that as a great opportunity to contribute to the school.
Okay. Who wants to start?
Susan does one.
Susan, please.
What other community service are you involved in?
No other community service, unfortunately. I'm tapped out. Yeah, the Long Hill Board of Ed is taking up all my community service opportunities.
And you do understand that New Jersey has changed the rules, and you can no longer serve on 2 boards of ed.
I have no intention on serving on 2 boards.
So I guess, why move from Long Hill to Watchung?
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, I think a couple of reasons. One is the fact that I have, my kids here, it certainly has more of a vested interest, for sure. So yeah, that. Sorry. The other reason is when I ran for the Long Hill Board of Ed, I ran because I felt that there were not enough people interested to serve. We actually were, looking for people to serve on the board, and now we have, in our elections, we have 3 open spots and 4 people serving. So I feel that we have the interest and the need of people to serve on their board, and we have an opening here. So certainly a great opportunity to step into a needed position.
You've got a perspective also as a parent, so what areas do you think need strengthening here?
Yeah, it's a tough balance, because we definitely want to make sure, this is an exemplary school, and we want to make sure that the scores are good and we're ranked #1, right? But it's a balancing act. It's not just how our kids, it's not what are the scores and how they do, it's how they get there. And so I feel that the emotional and social development, it's their career readiness, it's having well-rounded kids is just as important as the scores and the rankings of the schools. And in some cases, even more important. I actually, I teach fitness classes at the YMCA in Somerset Hills, and so we have option 2 students from a different school district who take my classes and often come to me, you know, as a parent that they can relate to and talk about their teachers and how teachers don't understand them and how they're not as sensitive and how there's so much pressure on them and lack of just overall support. And I always go to my kids at night and tell them how lucky they are to be part of the Watchung Hills School District, because I really do feel the teachers here have a broader understanding of the whole child and really care about the whole child. So I think this is something that, you know, will always be a tough balancing act, right? We're competitive, we want to perform well, we want our schools to rank high, but it's also really important to make sure that we're raising healthy kids, balanced kids.
Thank you. Any other board member questions? Bob?
So, give us an example of something you did on the at the Long Hill Board of Education, an initiative that you championed from beginning to end, something
Yeah.
you're really proud of.
Yeah, so a few years ago, we had a big infrastructure upgrade. You know, changed all the wireless systems, lots of knob switches, a lot of language I didn't understand. I was on the technology committee at that time, and it was a huge project. It was very complicated to a large degree. We knew that we needed to make a lot of upgrades. We knew kind of what we needed to accomplish, but there was really lack of clarity on exactly what the objectives were, what were all the elements of success. And there were a lot of stakeholders in the process, right? You had the teachers who had one perspective, you had the technical people who had another perspective, other staff members, and it was very important to corral everybody and align on common goals. So as we assessed the different suppliers who were coming in and providing different recommendations, there was common language and common goal to help assess all of that and then choose the right supplier and see through implementation. And I really pride myself in being the one who said, all right, guys, let's sit down and almost put together a rubric of what are we looking for? What is a must-have and why? What is a nice-to-have? So that when we're evaluating the project, we all agree on what we're looking for, as opposed to, hey, it's a nice presentation, they have a lot of nice bells and whistles.
Thank you.
We're about to embark on looking at a new strategic plan for the next 5 years.
We are as well.
As a board member here,
Yeah.
what would be your focus, or what would be the most important thing that you think we need to include in the next strategic plan?
Well, you know, I think the elements that you have in the current strategic plan are overall the right elements. And I think, you know, coming from the marketing world, actually that's a good sign of a strategic plan. Your strategic plan shouldn't necessarily, unless things significantly change in the environment, you should not be changing your strategic plan all the time. You should update it based on, you know, kind of what's happening and make it more up to date and relevant, and make sure that the action items are up to date, as opposed to keep changing the strategic plan. So in terms of, as I review the strategic plan, I think from a high level, we're hitting on the right things. I mean, enhancing the social and emotional wellness of all students. Again, like I said, critically important. This is a challenging area. It's a tough balance with academic excellence. It's how do we keep doing that? It's not changing the strategy. It's what are the action items to make sure that that strategy is implemented. Strengthening support structures, right? You guys are about to embark on a huge project. This is not simple. It's updating our infrastructure to be, you know, more up to date and meet the needs of today's environment, student environment. Again, so it's not the goal itself or the strategy. It's what are the actions that are best suited to support that. and creating innovative, creative, interdisciplinary learning experience to make sure inspire students to succeed in the changing global community. Again, I think right on. It's really how do we address it now in today's day and age. So I think your strategies are actually right on. I don't know that I would say, woohoo, we have an opportunity to change them. It's just more how do we actually activate against them.
Thank you. Thank you. And we'll move on to our next candidate. Sam, and I'm going to ask you to pronounce your last name as well.
So, can everybody hear me? Yep. So my last name is Zachariasen. Good evening, Watchung Hills Board of Education members. My name is Sam Zachariasen. It is a pleasure to be here tonight with you to have the opportunity to be chosen to represent my town of Long Hill on the Watchung Hills Regional High School Board of Education. First, thank you for your service to the Watchung Hills community. All of you carry multiple responsibilities of having careers, families, to name a few, and yet still find the time at the end of the long day to continue to serve your community. It was only a few short years ago that I walked down these halls as a student here at Watchung Hills, where I received a world-class education and graduated with the class of 2016. It is within the walls of this building where I learned the importance of being a global citizen and to live a life of public service. During my time here at Watchung Hills, I was heavily involved in student life, serving as the head of the yearbook committee, as the secretary of the all-school council, the school-wide governing board, where 2 or 3 of its members every year sit as student representatives on this board, and where I had the privilege of serving the student body, and following my graduation as a summer student worker with Buildings and Grounds, a position created for students by the board. I'm now currently a commuter student at Whrhs Business School in downtown Newark, studying accounting and supply chain management, and in 2 years, I will graduate and start my career in public accounting. To say I had a wonderful high school experience would be an understatement, and one of the many reasons I stand before you tonight, hoping to serve alongside you for the next 15 months, but also to tackle the challenges facing students of my own generation. There are many challenges that a school district faces. Budget parameters while cost of services continue to rise, managing multiple stakeholders, our faculty and staff, students and community members, and making sure we put our students first in the everyday decisions that are made. I felt there was no better time than now because of the current decisions that are being made in response to technological change and advancement, an area that I have become very passionate about. In secondary schools, colleges, and universities across the country are rising to the challenge of how to prepare our students for what is being called Industrial Revolution 4.0, where artificial intelligence, globalization, and technology are part of everyday life. Watchung Hills has always been at the forefront of adapting technological change both inside and outside the classroom. When I was a student here, it was about the launch of Google Classroom and smartboards in select classrooms, and over the past few years, this has only grown scale, where every student now uses online scheduling to pick their electives through Genesis and is part of the Chromebook one-to-one initiative. The next year is an interesting time for Watchung Hills and a conversation I hope to be a part of. This year, the district is entering into its last year of its 5-year strategic plan, and as we evaluate the successes of the first strategic plan, we have the opportunity to chart out what the goals, challenges, and opportunities are for the next 5 years as we enter the strategic planning process for the second time and look for a facilitator who will help us guide this process. In addition, we have made progress to be Future Ready Schools compliant, a collaboration between NJIT, the New Jersey School Boards Association, and the New Jersey Department of Education. And just recently, with the passage of the referendum last week, as a district, we are able to take advantage of the state of New Jersey's reimbursement up to 40% of the total cost, putting these monies back into the Capital Reserve Fund to use for future projects. In addition, it will provide the needed upgrades to the electrical panels and will convert the media center where we stand tonight into a space that will continue to serve the needs of our students for years to come. I'm excited to be back at Watchung Hills, now as an alumni and fellow community member, to use my experiences in the higher education system as a teaching assistant inside the classroom, as a student panelist on the Whrhs Business School reaccreditation team, and nominee for the student charter trustee position on the Whrhs Board of Governors, or trustees, I'm sorry, as a guide as we have the many conversations of what the future holds. The future is most certainly bright, and I look forward to the opportunity serving with you, to learn from your expertise, and to serve my community well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rita, thank you.
What do you see as the role of a school board member? Like, what is the main purpose of a school board member?
So there's really, the purpose is kind of an overall function, and it's really a governance function. So I had the opportunity to really experience that when I was a nominee for the student trustee position with the Whrhs Board of Trustees, which is one of the two governing bodies of Rutgers University, the Board of Trustees, which is the original body, and then when it became a state university, they added the Board of Governors. So really in that, I was able to kind of see what the overall role was, which was an overall governance of functions and making sure that things are being efficiently and we're taking use of the resources that we have.
You've described a fairly extensive list of community activities you're already involved with at the university and otherwise. Just talk about that a little bit versus the time commitments as a board member here.
Sure. So a lot of that was past things that I've done. I know coming in to make the commitment, and the nice thing about being a college student is that your schedule is very kind of dynamic. You're able to change it semester to semester, classes wise. So I always make sure when I go in that I will give my full commitment, and it's definitely a large undertaking and something that I'm prepared for. Just in terms of other things that I've done, so being inside the classroom was one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. I had the opportunity to be a teaching assistant for a doctoral student who was getting her PhD in supply chain management, and I learned a lot about kind of the insides of the university. So her getting her PhD, and now she's on job track, so I'm no longer a teaching assistant, I'm a former teaching assistant, and then also having the opportunity to actually lecture in front of students about current issues that happen inside the ever-changing job market. So things like technology and the use of different programs, whether that be in business, it's like Tableau or Excel, those types of things. And then I was also part of the pre-professional clubs where we put really an emphasis on the community service. In the city of Newark, there's a lot of things that go on and there's a lot of initiatives that you can take to serve your broader community. What we call Rutgers University in Newark is an anchor institution. So we are not just a university in the city, we're actually part of the city.
Fred?
Yeah, Sam, you touched upon like this fourth wave of the Industrial Revolution. Can you talk a little bit more of how you can bring your unique skills to benefit the board and prepare students to be prepared for this incoming revolution?
Absolutely. It really kind of starts because I'm in it right now. So the importance of just starting out early with resume development, and that starts even before there's a piece of paper that says a resume. So you're here in the high school, there are things you've done. They come now and they expect when you get to college that you start recruiting. Recruiting is moving earlier and earlier. And to make sure that our students are prepared, it doesn't necessarily mean that everything has to be done at the high school level, because you'll learn things throughout your time here that you can apply. But to make sure that our students are ever ready in this ever-changing economy is something that's really important. So just kind of going back to touching upon the well-rounded student. So I see a lot of students and the students I've worked with where they may excel in one area, and that's great. But employers are looking for well-rounded individuals. People at Rutgers, one of the biggest problems that we've had to face is that students don't speak up. They go to class, they listen to the lecture, but they're not speaking up. So if we can start to make sure that our students are questioning things that are going on in the classroom, I think that's just a great start to the overall function of what their next step of life would be.
So I certainly appreciated your opening comments, but I'd like to hear why you really want to be on this board.
I think there's a certain value that can be that I can add in terms of just being part of this generation and understanding the challenges that come along with being in it right now. And also, as part of it is a learning opportunity for me. I would be not telling you the full truth if that I have a big learning curve. I don't carry the type of work experience that a lot of members, candidates here and all of you carry. So it's as much as it's a learning opportunity for me, I feel I can add from that just this generational perspective.
Any other questions? Just speak a little bit about the strategic plan. You mentioned it in your opening statement. what is it we need to do in the next strategic plan?
So I just kind of start with the overall kind of strategic plan. The strategic plan was developed when I was a student here. It was really launched my senior year of high school, and I knew many students who were part of that strategic planning process, particularly in the realms of social and emotional wellness, post-secondary learning, and this whole STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, which I think, especially the STEAM part and making sure that students choose the careers that they want and they know what the certain challenges and what the certain opportunities are of choosing a particular career, whether that means relocation somewhere else, whether that means salary implications, because in this day and age, college costs are rising, things like that. We're making sure that our students are making informed decisions that they don't later regret.
Thank you very much, Sam.
Thank you.
And as Tim may have mentioned, we're going later in the meeting to go back into executive session and have our comments. Once we then make a decision, whoever we decide upon, even if you've been fingerprinted by Long Hill, would have to be fingerprinted here again through some idiocy in state law. So it's not a situation where you'll be able to immediately start serving on the board, but we want it to be as quick as possible because we want to replace our member who had to resign as quickly as possible. So you'll hear from us, if not later tonight, first thing in the morning, as to what our decision was. Mr. Stiles will probably be getting in touch with all four of you about that.
I know, thank everybody for their interest. From Long Hill, we've always had this outpouring of community service, and it's lovely to see people from every area of our town and representing all different parts of our town coming in and being interested in coming to be a board member.
Yeah, and we're glad that all of you came and gave us this hard decision to make. So thank you. We're going to move on now with the meeting. We are now at the first opportunity for public comment. This public comment period will be limited to agenda items for this meeting only. There'll be a second opportunity for public comment later, open to any topic. If you wish to address the board on any agenda items tonight, please step forward and state your name and the town that you're from. Hearing none, I will close the first opportunity for public comment. For discussion, agenda items, we've got to go through future discussion items. So let's start with the future agenda items. We've got the I'm sorry, we're in Roman numeral 7. Anyone have any discussion on any of the things that we're going to be voting on at the next meeting?
Mr. Fallon?
Yes.
Did we skip 6?
6 is board discussion on future action items, and he's just doing future before he does
Oh, okay.
regular action. I think he confuses you every single time.
Yeah, because I confuse myself every single time with the discussion. I just thought we'd have discussion on this first and then move on to this
Discussion on
of
action.
today's agenda, action item.
Yeah, we probably should actually
We
flip
should
them.
probably flip
Yeah.
that around,
Probably flip them.
I agree.
because that makes much more sense, actually.
I've only been confused for a year and a half. So.
We'll flip them. Good suggestion.
So 8 is about the referendum, right? That's the one that we
Yes.
have to approve next
Yeah.
time about the note.
The temporary
Right.
note, yeah.
Okay.
It's a standard resolution that applies to both notes and bonds,
Okay.
just FYI. Some of it may not specifically apply.
But this doesn't say like what the interest rate is, right?
No, this is
Okay.
just the authorization to.
Go forward and to start negotiating the note. Okay.
Correct. Yes.
And item 9 in there, as Dr. Shabilsky had mentioned in the Operations Committee report, discusses the fees that we're anticipating would be incurred going forward with the ESIP. The one that's immediate would be the plan development, $19,000 fee. Any other questions or comments on the action items for?
So just so I'm
Yes,
clear,
okay.
I'm back to 9. I
Yep.
think we had this conversation sort of a little bit when we did the resolutions for the referendum. What we're saying is we're gonna approve, if we approve this next time, we're approving that plan development. And then if we go to the next phases, we would be saying that it would be we would be paying, the implementation of the bid would be 6.9% of the final construction cost.
Yeah, and actually, the architects told us tonight that they gave us those amounts sort of as placeholders for
Okay.
what we
you
could
don't know the
anticipate
project.
that it would not exceed.
Okay.
But that as we get into actually planning the project, he'd be negotiating a flat fee.
Right,
Okay.
depending on the size of the
Okay.
project, which you don't know yet.
Okay. So it's really just, like we did before, we're really just approving that first one, that ESIP plan development in a way,
That-
right?
That's, yeah, that's
Yeah.
correct. That's the
Okay.
most critical one.
Okay.
Other questions on future action items? Hearing none, we'll move to the action items.
Mr. President, I would like to move items A1 through A4.
We don't have a Greenbrook representative on the board, so I think we can probably, oh, you did.
He did.
You did. I'm still as confused as I was before. I apologize.
So I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion on resolutions recommended by the superintendent, A1 through A4? Roll call vote, Mr. Stiles.
Ms. Barone,
Yes.
Mr. Fahey,
Yes.
Mr. Hayek,
Yes.
Mr. Hunsinger,
Yes.
Mr. Morrison,
Yes?
Mrs. Ober,
Yes.
Dr. Shabilsky,
Yes.
and Mr. Fallon.
Yes, and I'll
Motion
try and keep
carries.
up with you on the rest of these, Bob.
Mr. President, I'd like to move items B1.
Barry, did you second that?
Sure.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you, Bob. I thought you muttered under your breath.
I did.
Over there.
Any discussion on resolution B1? Mr. Stiles?
Ms. Barone,
Yes.
Mr. Fahey,
Yes.
Mr. Hayek,
Yes.
Mr. Hunsinger,
Yes.
Mr. Morrison,
Yes.
Mrs. Ober,
Yes.
Dr. Shabilsky,
Yes.
and Mr. Fallon.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Mr. President, I'd like to move items C1 through C15.
Second.
Thank you, Bob and Rita. Any discussion on resolutions C1 through C15? Do we have a roll call vote, Mr. Stiles?
Ms. Barone,
Yes.
Mr. Fahey,
Yes.
Mr. Hayek,
Yes.
Mr. Hunsinger,
Yes.
Mr. Morrison,
Yes?
Mrs. Ober,
Yes.
Dr. Shabilsky,
Yes.
and Mr. Fallon.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Mr. President, I'd like to move items D1 through D6.
Second.
Thank you, Bob and Rita. Any discussion on resolutions D1 through D6? Hearing none?
Ms. Barone,
Yes.
Mr. Fahey,
Yes.
Mr. Hayek,
Yes.
Mr. Hunsinger,
Yes.
Mr. Morrison,
Yes?
Mrs. Ober,
Yes.
Dr. Shabilsky,
Yes.
and Mr. Fallon.
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Thank you. We're now at the second opportunity for public comment, which is not limited to agenda items, but can be on any subject. And if you'd like to address the board, please step forward, state your name and the town that you're from. Going once, going twice. We will now close the second opportunity for public comments. We're going to go back into executive session, and I'll have a motion in a moment for that, because I don't know how long that executive session is going to last. And we're going to raise any other business. Bob?
Is there any update on your conversations with the sending districts on shared services?
The update is that it looks like the 17th is we're finally going to be able to get people together to talk. And that's the only update at this point.
Okay, then,
Wait,
I'm sorry.
Super,
I was just gonna add, it's related, but not, you had asked, we had talked about at the last meeting about the, later high school start times. And we're actually hosting, a meeting here for the county, and it's, so a number of, our districts in the county that have high schools will be attending. It's, I guess it's probably in 2 weeks, and we all invited, our board presidents to be at that meeting as well, and I do believe that our K-8 districts are going to attend. They are very interested in the conversation. You know, what we're hoping, there's allegedly information about the pilot is going to be coming out in the next month or two. We would not be eligible for that unless all 5 of us applied. But I'm hoping with the information for that, you know, if it includes a feasibility study of looking at all of our schedules of all of our 5 districts, at busing, at all of that, to let us know if it's a feasible option. I think that, you know, it's certainly something that we're all interested in. If it's something where you have to commit to doing it in, you know, 2020, 2021, I don't know that that's, you know, gonna be a realistic option, but if it's something that involves them actually finally taking a look and doing a study on that, you know, that's certainly something I'd be interested in, but I'll certainly keep you posted on that. So I just wanted to make sure I brought that up.
Will that be an early morning or a late morning meeting?
Right? Should do it at the actual start time.
Bob,
So then, following on that, and taking a turn from the feasibility study, the New Jersey governor just announced last week the Local Efficiency Achievement Program, or acronym LEAP, within the State Department of Community Affairs, where they've allocated $10 million to look at shared services and other activities. What's of interest is that there's a $2 million grant pool that's devoted specifically to school consolidation studies. And given the fact that we've been having this conversation, given the fact that one of the barriers is, gee, wouldn't it be nice if we could get a study to see if there was even, you know, what the viability would be and what the benefits to taxpayers and what the benefits may be to education if we were to consider such a move, that maybe as part of this conversation with the sending districts, that we could develop a consortium to go to the state to say, we're interested in looking at a consolidation study.
So you have to apply for the grant, is that what you're saying?
I believe the grant, the grant specific guidelines have not been let, but the announcement was just made last week, and like anything else, first come, first serve.
Bob, if you have the announcement, if you could email it to me, I'll send it to the other board presidents tomorrow morning.
Excellent.
And try and goose that conversation.
Okay, great. And then the last item would be just to follow up on board training.
I'm
Oh, yeah.
still trying to get dates from Gwen, who also owes us the summary of the evaluations that we've done. So she's been a little frazzled, but I will follow up with her tomorrow and shoot an email out also.
Okay. Thank you.
I will now entertain a motion in accordance with the provision of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act. Be it hereby resolved that the board move into executive session to discuss confidential personnel, legal, HIB matters, CSA contract and merit goals, and WHREA negotiations, after which action may be taken. It is expected that the matters discussed in executive session will be made public as soon as the need for confidentiality no longer exists.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We're back in public session. I'm going to entertain a motion from Rita to resolve the Board of Education approves the selection of Jordana Raban to serve as a board member for Long Hill Township in the vacated seat, to serve until December 31, 2020, rather than pending,
Pending her resignation.
pending her resignation from the Long Hill Township K-8 Board of Education, and pending receipt of criminal history and fingerprint clearance.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Susan, thank you, our two Long Hill members. Any discussion? Do we need a roll call vote, Mr. Stiles?
You guys want it? That's probably a good idea.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
I'll abstain because
Thank-
I'll abstain, and just for the record, it's because I only have 3 more months left on the board, so I just don't think it's becoming of me to vote on the, position for someone who's gonna be working with everyone else much longer, so.
Thank you, John. And
Not
John-
that I don't think she's an excellent candidate.
John, we're going to be sorry to be losing you on the board, too. Thank you for your service here.
Thank you.
Somebody-
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
So moved.
Second. Thanks, Bob.